All right, everybody, welcome to the Pharmacist Enlarged with Dr. Ken Schell. So we're going to be right back. Thank you to the Pharmacy Podcast Network for helping us out here after this reel. All right, Dr. Schell, how are you today?
Awesome. Happy Friday to you and all your friends.
All right, so good topic today. So we're going to be talking a little bit about like getting a job and negotiating all that sort of fun stuff that is not fun. Pharmacists are not very good at it. I was poor at it, right? When I got various jobs throughout my career, I really never negotiated anything until the one job that you and I are connected to. I actually asked for more than that, and I got it, right? So, but that was it. That was it, and I had no idea what I was doing or anything like that. So please enlighten us on and maybe fill in some backstory to kind of kick us off, Ken.
Okay, and thanks, Sean. Um, One of the things that came to mind, I had been a pharmacist, wow, almost 13 years before I negotiated for my job. Um, Fortunately, I had family members, my younger brother in particular, he was an attorney, and he kind of coached me on negotiating for jobs. To that point, every job that I had, I came in, I interviewed, they said, "You got the job." I didn't even really ask them how much I was going to make. They would tell me, "You're making X," and I'd say, "Fine," and that's it. Came to realize that there's more to job than just your salary. Basically, when someone says you're making $100,000 a year, you're really not. You're not taking that much home. So that's when you started thinking, well, how much do I really need to live? And of course, you don't want to make exactly what you need to live. You want to have a cushion because things happen. They happen to me. I'm sure they happen to you. And so you have that cushion. So the first thing is, how do I establish my worth? How do I determine how much I can get from a job? Um, if it's your first job, and my first job was the hardest, by the way, it's one of those situations you walk into. I had never worked in a pediatric hospital. Uh, they actually asked me to interview there. So when someone asks you to interview, that kind of establishes a little bit of value as opposed to you asking them for an interview, because now you know they want you. So you may be able to set your sights a little bit higher at that point. What do I ask for? Typically you think I got to negotiate money, but there are other things too besides just salary. There are bonuses, there are other things like what kinds of health care do I get? Do I have a 401k retirement plan? All these other things you can negotiate. Do they match your contribution to your retirement plan, which I found, and I'm reaping the benefits now, but it was, if my employer matched me, essentially I was doubling what my retirement money was going to be. And every employer that I've had has actually, after my first job, because I didn't get that my first job, has actually matched, or they offered a matching program depending on how much you would contribute. So go in thinking a lot of those things, but first, don't ever, I shouldn't say that. I think it would be unwise to go in and the first question you ask them is, how much am I going to make? That starts to make you look more mercenary than as someone who wants to come and stay. Now, this market, no one's going to stay at a job for 20 years. I think that's unlikely. I think employers don't expect it. Back when I started in 1985 and I got my first job, I think employers were hiring people thinking they're going to be here a long time, 15, 20, 30. And I know people who were at my original job 40 years on the case. So knowing that you're probably going to be changing jobs, and this is a way and a mechanism how you can increase your salary more quickly than staying at one place. You start out, you want to get the job, because if you can get in there and work hard and show your value, you can start to ask for more. In fact, the people around you will support you if you are, I won't say a team player, but you show your value to them, what you bring. If you're new to the profession and you don't have a lot of experience, that's probably the best tactic. Get in there. I'm not saying take the worst salary there is, but if you've done things like residencies or you have some experiences prior to pharmacy school that are related to the job you're asked for, um, after you ask them, and the first question I would always ask, and I've interviewed tons of people, is what am I going to be doing? What do you expect of me? And they'll show you the job description. And I know the job description is what it is, but they usually want something and they will tell you. And you'll always have an opportunity to enter other staff and things like that. So what do you guys do for at this place? And you'll get a wide variety of answers, understanding that no one interview is going to be completely truthful, even you, but at least you get an idea. And then when the offer comes, they will try, because in all the negotiating books and classes I read, is make the other guy make the first offer. And why is that? Because that's now a set point. That becomes, is that the most he wants me? No, more likely that's the least he wants. I know that's what I always did. You offer the person the least salary that in the range. And if they accept it, great. And then, of course, they get the job and they find out from their colleagues, you took the bottom, they're bent. And I say, look, you could have negotiated. And most pharmacists would tell me, I didn't know that I could. Well, yes, you can. Now, you may not always get what you asked for, but you can always negotiate. But if you can get the person to say, look, here's what I'm offering you, $95 an hour. Have your calculator ready, because now you can translate that into annual salary. So multiply that $95 an hour by 2080, which is the standard work year, 2,080 hours, and you can identify how much that is per year. And if that sounds good to you, go happy birthday. You may only even want to just do it per month, because usually you're setting your finances up by monthly, not yearly. So you take that 2080 divided by 12, multiply that by the hourly rate, and you can get an idea, is this acceptable to me? Sometimes you'll say, I want this much. And then when you break it down and you go, crap, that's a lot of money. And you realize you may have asked too much after they'd said, no, we'll never pay you that much in the first year. Some people will, you'll be shocked and amazed. But the one thing you don't want to have happen is, let's say the other guy says, well, how much do you think you want? What do you think a good salary would be for you? And you say, look, I want to make $150,000 a year. If they say, sure, no problem, you didn't ask for enough. You want to make them make a counter offer. But what you don't want to do is say, look, I want to make $350,000 a year. And they'll go first. And then they'll say, well, even the CEO doesn't make that much. Or they may just say, great, thanks. Well, you're not the kind of person we want. That's a little bit above our range. Now you're screwed, because I shouldn't have said that. But now you're going to have a problem, because they may rescind the offer. What you don't want is for that to happen. But you do want them to at least counter you. And so if they said, look, 165 a year or 150,000 a year, and you said 175, you could say, well, can I meet in the middle? Or if it's closer to their number, you say, is there a signing bonus, a sign-on bonus? And you can ask for that. But these are negotiating tools that you have. You can find out the value of what the compensation package is. It's more than just money. It's benefits, it's retirement, things like that. So don't go in thinking, well, this is only about the money that I'm going to get in my pocket. It could be more things than that. But the go ahead. Sorry.
No,
because I'm going to go on forever.
no. So I want you to go back to one thing. I got three questions here. I'll go just the first and then I'll move on. I liked what you said about jumping ship. One of my favorite mentors told me one time, he's like, if you ever want to move up the ladder, you ever want to, climb a corporate ladder, don't try to do it in the same company. He's like, you got to jump ships and go to somebody else and try to go up faster that way. Any thoughts there, kind of on the same token as what you were talking about as far as the negotiating piece?
Oh, absolutely. And I say that that's basically true, but you can stay within your organization and you can do more. And when you say jump ship, it doesn't necessarily mean leaving your employer. You may have to do a different job for that employer. For example, if you start out as a staff person, you may take a supervisor's job or a lead or an assistant director job, moving up the ladder that way, going into management. That's one way to do it. But if your company is giving you a 4 to 6% raise over time, your salary will crawl up slowly. But if you really want to, I use myself as an example, to enhance your salary more quickly than that, you may need not only to change organizations, but to change what you do so that you can get in a different price range or compensation range than what you left.
Okay. No, good, Ken. Thanks on that. And one other one, it was I liked how you said it. Not everyone is truthful at the interview, right? I mean, obviously, we're coming in. Let's say I'm getting interviewed. I'm going to try to show my best cards, my best hand. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like how would you think about coming, like reading between the lines and okay, at least I have a good idea. It may not be all sunshine and rainbows the way it's perceived to be here from this conversation, but I don't know, any experience there on kind of diving and reading between the lines?
Yeah, and one of the things that would be helpful is always ask to talk to some of the staff that are working there, people who have a job, and to ask the people who are in management things like, so what's the turnover rate like here? Or where do your people, people who leave here, where do they go? And that may be a gentler way of asking, how many people stay, how many people flee this job, or why has it been open so long? So those are ways you can kind of start to find out how the position is like. But when you get to the staff interviews, understand that there are people who are disgruntled. They may make things seem a lot worse than they really are. In fact, they may be the problem and not necessarily the cause, or they may be people you don't want to give them full credit for their answers. But yeah, the questions that I would ask to find out really what it's like, what your expectations are, especially how long has this position been open. If you have a position that's been open for 2 or 3 years, there's got to be something challenging about that that would make people reluctant to take it. When you get into a place where they say, yeah, we turn over about 5 or 6 people a year in your job classification out of 30, that's a lot of turnover. And so when you see turnover in a facility like that, there may be some other things in place that may not be what you want. But again, people leave for a variety of reasons, not all of them the same. And they may not be the reasons why you would leave, but those things you should take into account as you start to interview for jobs, because it gives you a better flavor for what to expect when you sign and agree and you walk in that first day.
Okay, I love that. Last one, while I have you here, negotiating. Make the other guy go first. What if they're both like, no, you go, no, you go? How do you handle that? How do you prep for that? That answer's coming or that question's coming, and if it gets turned back on you, it's like, okay, now I'm in the hot seat. Now I have to come up with something.
Yeah, and this is where you can do some research. Pharmacy is a small world. People. If you can get an idea of what people make, if you can get someone to reveal, so hey, how much do you make here? How long did it take you to get there? People may be willing to, the staff people may be willing to answer that question for you. If you're in a no, you go first, you go first, you have to have a basic understanding of what the salary structure is. And then I would ask for near the top, certainly not the top, because if you get the top to the salary, your salary is going to stay there. So you want to have room to move up. Having said that, if you're going to go first, go higher than lower. And I would go higher than the mid-range and allow yourself to be talked down, because if they can't meet your salary demands, you would want them to say, so what is it about me that makes you say, no, you can't meet that demand? And they'll say things like, well, your years of experience aren't there, or you haven't done this, you just gotten out of school or residency or whatever. They will say that. But if I would only go twice with that. It's like you say, they say, well, what kind of salary did you have in mind? You go, well, I have a lot of things in mind, but what do you normally start people at? And that throws it back to them. And they say, well, everybody's different. What were you looking for? Then I would say, this is what I was looking for. And give it to them a little bit higher, even maybe higher than you feel comfortable with. I remember the first time I negotiated, I was extremely uncomfortable, throwing out because I'd never done it before. And you say, they're not gonna accept this. If you think that, you won't get it. And unfortunately for me, I threw a number out and then they accepted right away. Didn't make a counter, or we shouldn't say that. They didn't say, well, that's a little bit higher. They just took it. And my brother called me an idiot. He said, you didn't ask for enough. And I said, but that was what I wanted. That's all I wanted. So again, knowing what you want and knowing what you need are two different things. And when you go in there, you certainly want to be higher than what you need, but willing to accept what you want, less than what you want.
Love it. Okay. Good stuff, Ken. Do you remember what we were talking about before? Because I don't. That was my.
Yeah, we were talking about negotiating, and one of the strategies when you're like in committees and things like that, and things are moving forward with a bunch of people, I was introduced to a concept called yes, no, and no way. That you have an objective, and people say, we want to move forward with this. We want to get your feedback. And if you can agree, of course, that's easy. If you don't agree, then you have to be willing to say why. If you don't agree to a number, if you don't agree to a job task, if you don't agree to serve on a committee or whatever, you have to have a valid reason why, or at least a reason why. Sometimes it's just you're irritated. You don't think this is the greatest thing to do. But then there's the no way. And you have a very strong objection. And when you have something like that, one, you can't come after the fact that I really hated this, I didn't want to do it. And then you try to sabotage it. So the no way is, I can't live with this. I have to have you listen to me and let me tell you why I think this is something I can't live with. And I was in a situation like that where I was in a job that I absolutely loved. I would have done it my entire career if I could have. But something changed, and I was in a yes, no, and no way. Yes, I love my job. No, I didn't agree with what they're doing. And there were things that I would have found acceptable, and I did make it known what I felt was a good compromise position, but there was no compromise there. And so then I was pushed into a no way. And when I said, well, I can't accept this, and I told them why, they say, well, let us think about it. And they got back to me and they said, well, everybody else is doing it. We expect you to do it too. And I couldn't get off my no way, so I left that job. You have to be willing to walk. And it's hard sometimes to walk away from a job. Fortunately, I had 6 weeks to ease out of that position before they made the transition to the place I felt was no way for me. But sometimes you get something that's thrust upon you, and it's going to happen in days or maybe a couple of weeks. And to make that kind of decision without having someplace else to go becomes very challenging. So be careful, but think about what you need again. The yes, that's good. The no, that's okay. No means no, I really don't support this, but I'm going to work within the system. If you will come back and revisit, if my issues are not resolved by then, because maybe I didn't see it the right way, then you would want to come back to the table and say, let's relook at this. But if it's no way, you're saying, I cannot move forward with this is a deal breaker for me. This is why, if I can't have my issues resolved, then I'm going to have to go. And don't threaten. It's not like a threat, it's a promise. So you have to be willing to back up what you're saying, because you say, no way, I can't do this. And then at the end, you go, oh, okay, I'll try it. Now that removes a little bit of your credibility. So the next time you try it, they'll go, yeah, that's what they always do.
Yeah, good call. Good point on that. I like that. I like the no way piece of it. So in any situation where you're at that no way point, right? But yet it could be days or weeks before, okay, that no way means you're out, like sayonara.
Yeah.
Like, I suppose every situation is different, and that's why pharmacists come up with a million different scenarios. I'm doing that right now, right? But like thinking about because right now, I mean, so a lot of examples you've said are like, okay, well, what about that job that there's 40 people lined up out the door to get it, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I know I'm not tracking here, Ken, but it just kind of, that's one thing that I thought about is like, if you are going for something in our market right now, that's all the desirable jobs have a long line of applicants, right?
Yeah. And so here's the thing about that. It's not necessarily always good to take the most desirable job. Sometimes it's better to take a job that's not desirable, because at that point they want to get someone in there, and they will let you do things that in the desirable job they said, this is what you have to do, there's no room to change it. But in the undesirable job, you can make it desirable, you can make it a job that is desirable, but it might take you a little while, but they'll give you room to work because they want to fill it. This is how I was trained actually in pharmacy school. I was told, don't go out and take a job that's already established, because that means somebody's been there. Everybody expects you to be like them. And now you come into a job and you say, I can get the same outcome, but I want to do it differently. And they'll say, no, do it this way. So I've done that 3 times. I've either taken jobs that either weren't there and I had to create the job description, or a job that no one really wanted, and I took the job and I was able to make it my job and make it desirable for me, and ultimately became desirable for others.
Fascinating. I've never thought about that before, taking the undesirable job that nobody wants. I guess I did do that one time. And that's maybe why the negotiation work that I got a bump in pay that I asked for. So that's funny. I didn't know it was undesirable, though. That's my disclaimer. I did not ask the right questions. All right, Ken. Well, that's good. How about back? Okay, I'm kind of out of questions on this, and this was really good, Ken. A lot of good nuggets here for any pharmacist, or pharmacy technician wanting to transition. Maybe. Okay, last one. You said something about ask for a bonus, right? Well, a lot of times bonuses means you got to meet certain metrics and things like that. So as far as the negotiation piece there, I mean, any wiggle room on, I need this at least some bonus, or because a lot of times some of the metrics people need to obtain are unrealistic, right?
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. And the bonus, there are 2 types of bonuses: signing bonuses, bonuses that when you come to the company, because maybe they can't meet your longitudinal salary demands, your basic hourly salary, they're saying, well, we'll give you some money up front. And that's one of those things that you can try to negotiate.
Okay.
The annual bonuses usually are based on the performance metrics of the company, of your department, of you. Those are a lot trickier. And if you're really a hard worker, if you're someone that's going to come in and just blow the place up and just be a rock star, that shouldn't be a problem for you. If you have a clear metric for getting the bonus, that's great. Not all places have that clear metric. They say, well, we'll give you bonuses if the company does okay. What does okay mean? You're really not privy to that information. You may want to ask that. And first thing you would ask is there a bonus? Because most people don't even ask that. Is there an annual bonus? Or is there some monetary compensation package associated with me taking this job, associated with every year? And they'll say yes or no or maybe. For most staff jobs, you have like small bonuses. For manager jobs, the bonuses get substantially larger. So for those who are not considering going into supervisory or manager roles, consider it if you want to get those bonuses, understanding that those jobs are challenging to say the least. And you and I both know what it's like to be a PIC. Um, yeah, there's a reason why those jobs have high salaries and high bonuses. They're all high risk jobs. The higher the risk the job is to your license, the more financial compensation you'll get.
Okay, one last question. We got like 1 minute here, Ken. This is from the audience, from Beth. Thank you, Beth. How can you negotiate for time off?
It depends. You can negotiate for time off, but generally every organization has a time off structure. How many hours of time off you get per time that you work. And so you start to accumulate time off. You may want to see if the place will give you more time off relative to your hourly wage. You can trade hourly wage for time off, but typically that's not something that's negotiable. Um, you can ask for extra, but it's hard.
I did, to Beth, I did this one time, but it was based off my experience. I was going from one chain to the next, moving, and I asked, I'm like, well, yes, I've been in pharmacy I've been a pharmacist PIC for 8-9 years. Like, I'm not going to start over at 3 weeks, right? So I was able to get that. Anyways, all right, that's all for today, Ken. I truly appreciate your time, my man. We'll be back here. We'll be seeing a lot more of Ken now once the schedule slows down. So, anything else, Ken?
Hey,
Before we go?
that last question was great, by the way, because I've done the same as you. After my first job, which was only 2 weeks off a year, I never had less than 4, but the most I ever had was 7.
So, all right, we'll see you next.